Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Today's learning has been dedicated by Arthur Rubenstein. We are in Mishna Shabbos, Perek Beis, Chapter 2, Mishnah Beis, Mishnah 2. I'd like to dedicate this morning's learning in memory of my mother, Mrs. Shalamas Rabinowitz, Shalamas Bas Rabbi Yaakov Eliezer. Okay. Now, the previous Mishnah had listed the wicks and the oils that we may not use for Shabbos candles. And one of the oils that was mentioned before that we may not use was called shemen sreifa, burnt oil. So Mishnah Beis really is a continuation of that. When the Mishnah begins, Ein madlikim shemen sreifa b'yom tov. You cannot light, and you cannot use for your fuel, for your Shabbos candles, shemen sreifa, oil that's to be burned on Yom Tov. This is where the Mishnah is explaining what was mentioned in yesterday's Mishnah. Yesterday's Mishnah said you cannot use in the list of oils that cannot be used. One of the oils mentioned was shemen sreifa. Shemen sreifa means truma oil that became tamei, that became impure. One's not allowed to eat it. It has to be burnt. So the halacha is, so now you can, when you burn it, you can use it for fuel. So if you want to use it for your Shabbos candles, can you use it? And the Mishnah previously said, no, you can't. But the Mishnah really explains why you can't and actually then qualifies that halacha. Because you cannot burn, you cannot light with shemen sreifa on Yom Tov. The halacha mentioned before that you cannot use this oil of truma that became tamei for Shabbos candles is talking about when Friday is Yom Tov, leading into Shabbos. And because we may not burn truma that became tamei on Yom Tov, that's why you can't use it for your Shabbos candles. The reason you can't use it is because there is a halacha, as we mentioned yesterday, that kachim, sacrifices that, let's say, became impure, that was meant to be burned on the mizbeach, on the altar, became impure, you have to burn it. Truma, so we say that halacha is that may not be done on Yom Tov. Midrabanan, the rabbis extended this to say that truma, which is also a sanctified object, similar to a sacrifice, may also not be burned on Yom Tov. Since it may not be burned on Yom Tov, if you're going to use it for your Shabbos candles on Erev Shabbos, which is Yom Tov leading into Shabbos, you're going to have a problem that you have this rabbinic prohibition of burning truma on Yom Tov, similar to the Torah's prohibition about burning sacrifices that became impure on Yom Tov. Since you may not do that, therefore you cannot use it for the Shabbos candles on Friday, which is Yom Tov, going into Shabbos.
So you're not using, you're not burning it to destroy it.
In this case, you want to actually use it, but nonetheless, at the end of the day, you are burning a kachim, and you cannot do that on Yom Tov. Okay. Now, the Mishnah continues with a discussion of what we may use and what we may not use for the Shabbos candles. Rabbi Shmuel said, Ein madlikin be'itra b'pnei kvod HaShabbos. We may not use itran for Shabbos candles because of the honor of Shabbos. What is itran? Itran is the residue of pitch. It's a clear, oily liquid in contrast to pitch, which is thick. So this is the residue, whatever that means exactly, of pitch. And it's actually in a oil form. And therefore, really, there's no problem from the point of the substance of the oil. There would be nothing wrong here. But there's a different problem. The problem is it's a Shabbos. It's not an honor to Shabbos. What's not an honor to Shabbos? And the explanation is that itran gives off a very foul smell. And therefore, because of the foul odor, actually very foul, it gives it a foul odor. And therefore, the concern is that because of the bad smell, people are going to leave the room. And you're supposed to eat your meal by the Shabbos candles. The honor of Shabbos is to eat the Shabbos meal when it's light in the room. It makes it more enjoyable, more respectful. And if you're going to use this for your fuel, it's going to be a bad smell. People are going to decide better eat in the dark than to eat around this smelly oil. And therefore, although it doesn't have the problem of not burning clear, it does burn clear. Nonetheless, the problem is a different one, which is honor of Shabbos, that you're going to leave the room because of the bad smell. So that's Rabbi Shmuel's opinion. But the Chachamim say, the Chachamim permit the use of all oils. For example, which means sesame oil, nut oil, B'shemen tanoinais, they call it radish oil. It's an oil that's extracted from the radish seeds. B'shemen dagim, fish oil. B'shemen pakuais. Now, pakuais is a type of a gourd. It's an oil that comes from a certain, they call it here in English, if I am going to read it correct, colocynth. Colocynth. Colocynth.
Okay.
That's what they call it. But it's a type of a gourd and a type of a pumpkin. And those oils are usable. The itron that was mentioned by Rabbi Shmuel, which was the foul odor, uveneft. Naft, they translate as naphtha, which is, like itron, naphtha gives off a bad odor when burned. So the Chachamim say you can use that. Now, it's pointed out that this naft was never mentioned by Rabbi Shmuel. He only mentioned itron. So even according to Rabbi Shmuel, this naft isn't as bad as itron when it comes to the concern of going out of the room. But the point is that the Mishna means for the Chachamim to list all the different oils, that are possible to do, even the ones that give off what was considered a foul smell. So they bring down over here, I just read you from the notes in the bottom. Despite the Mishnah's statement, the sages permit. Now, first of all, according to the Chachamim, even though some of these things give off a bad smell, they're not concerned that you can leave the room. You know, you'd rather see what you're eating and deal with the bad smell than leave the room. So that's why they don't have a problem with itron. Now, although the Chachamim mentioned all oils are permissible, and apparently there was a reason to mention all these oils, the sesame seed, the nut, all these oils. Apparently they're not the best of oils, but nonetheless they can be used. Where the Chachamim say all oils can be used, that is not to the exclusion of the oils mentioned yesterday. The ones that mentioned yesterday, there's a problem that they don't burn, the flame doesn't burn steady. We're concerned that because of that, you're going to tilt the oil to make it burn better. The Chachamim agree that those oils may not be used. They're not talking about that. They're talking about these other oils that don't have that problem. So they say here, the sages agree that the substances listed in the previous Mishnah are forbidden because they do not produce a steady flame. Right? So if it doesn't produce a steady flame, it flickers, the Chachamim are going to agree to yesterday's Mishnah, you can't use it. The point here is that, number one, they disagree with Rabbi Shmuel about itron, about the bad-smelling itron, and they're also saying that some of these other oils, which probably don't burn that great, but they do burn steady, nonetheless, you can use them. The Bartanura points out that, furthermore, the sages prohibit two fuels that even they agree would cause people to leave the room. And these are balsam oil and white naphtha, which produce sparks that frighten people. You light it and it sparks, right? And that gets people nervous. So that, already the Chachamim say, that smell, they'll stick around. It starts sparking like that, they're not going to stick around for that. They're going to leave the room. And they point out it's only white naphtha that's forbidden. Other forms of naphtha are permitted. Okay, so therefore, just a little bit more explanation behind the Chachamim, that when the Chachamim permit all oils, again, they're not permitting the oils from yesterday that we say don't burn steady. There's a concern you're going to tilt it. That's not the kind of oils that they permit. They just permit all the oils, even if it has a foul smell, unless it gives off sparks. Even if it has a foul smell, even if these other things don't burn that clear, but they burn steady, you can use them. And as we just said, even the Chachamim hold that there are two types of fuels that because they spark, you cannot use them because for those kinds of things, people would leave the room. And the Mishnah concludes, Rabbi Tarfon says, we can only light Shabbos candles with olive oil. Only olive oil. Why is that? Because it is drawn to the wick more easily than all other oils. That's producing the clearest, most beautiful flame. You know, that's olive oil. It gets drawn the easiest. It makes the clearest and most beautiful flame. And therefore, the Rebbe Tarfon says, that's what you got to use for Shabbos candles. We don't paskin like that. You have to use it for Shabbos candles, but everybody agrees that olive oil is the preferred way of using. Meaning, if you're using an oil, olive oil is the preferred form. Some people will say that wax candles are as good as olive oil because it burns just as clear. But there are people even now that use olive oil because the Mishnah does say olive oil is the best fuel to use for your Shabbos candles. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Welcome.